unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello, welcome. A snowstorm dumped in a bunch of places where this show airs, so if you're in one of them, I hope you're doing okay. I fled New York. I'm in the West Coast this week. Have fun. All right, The Last Show, that's what you're listening to. On tonight's show, you'll learn a lot of things. Here are some of them. Dread, waiting for an outcome. It can feel heavier than reality itself. Halfway through the hour, new research shows why the fear of what might happen will shape your choices, whether the outcome is good or bad. And we'll teach you why waiting might be the hardest part of all. Then later in the hour, more people than ever report eating meals alone. Is this a depressing statistic? What does it say about loneliness? We'll cover that too. That's some of what the show will be. There will be more. Let's dive in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Imagine you climb a 101-story skyscraper, break a bunch of records, but so much messed up stuff is happening in the world right now. Nobody cares. Well, that is exactly what happened with Alex Honnold, and we're going to do the Lord's work describing a man who ascended to the heavens, at least almost, here with Caitlin Green, a media personality who is the co-host of the Jan Arden podcast. Caitlin, a joy it is having you on the show.
As someone who thinks that climbing really high things seems stupid, I'm kind of satisfied that this isn't landing for people just amidst the barrage of world news we have right now.
Yeah, it's like, oh, who cares? You just climbed a building. Come on, give the guy a little credit. He's human Spider-Man.
He's incredible. When I hear about the number of frozen dead bodies on the side of Mount Everest, I just go, I think we should call it. I think we should just call it a day.
Yeah, I saw like a topographical map, like an old bird's eye view map of where all the bodies are of all the people over the years in Everest, and it's horrific. Why would you want to do that? You'd have to walk by these frozen bodies it's too difficult to remove them. They're just there. I'm totally on a tangent, but why? Why?
No, it's true. And it's the same way that I feel about Alex Honnold. It's the same way I feel about hot air balloon rides. It's the same way I feel about a lot of things. That if something bad happens to you, everyone goes, yeah, well, fair enough. So why are you doing it? If no one cares that you die while you're doing it, and some people, me kind of, actually go, what an idiot, then don't do it.
I got an audio clip which I think sets the scene for this guy, I think perfectly. It's literally 6 seconds. You sent it to me this morning. I love it. This is him being interviewed after the achievement. Highest free solo climb of a building, I think is what that was.
That's right.
Alex Honnold has made history again.
Sick.
It's just exactly what you would expect of someone who's addicted to free climbing. They seem like they have the mentality sort of like surfer adjacent, just like very unusual. I would maybe think could have like some spectrum stuff going on. Because it's so funny to me that he just got up there and was like, sick. And that was it.
Yeah, no ropes, no safety net. It's got to be nuts. You mentioned something about his wife at the commercial break, how you're maybe low-key fascinated by her, or at least their relationship.
She's the one I want the documentary on, truthfully, because he had a documentary in 2018 that I watched and really enjoyed called Free Solo. And I am making fun of him, but he is endlessly impressive. Like the stuff that he's doing, like you put it, he is human Spider-Man. So I don't want to take away from that. It's crazy. But I think what's crazier is being married to this person, building a life with them, having 2 children with him, which they now do. And in the documentary, she is very concerned about his safety on multiple occasions, brought to tears. Like it's really putting her under a lot of stress because he climbed a mountain called El Capitan, which is like essentially it's just a rock face.
Yeah.
It is a rock face, and he goes up it with like one little meager rope, and you fully expect that you could be watching someone die. And she does this all the time, and she watches him prepare to do this. She knows in advance that he's going to be doing this. She knows the day of, like trying to check in with his team to see if he's still alive. And he just keeps doing this, even though they have now got 2 children. So he does this. This is the stunt he just did where he climbed the 101-story building in Taipei. He did it for Netflix. It's being live streamed. So she could now, and her kids could now have footage of her husband live stream dying. I come to find out he's only paid in the mid 6 figures for this. And this guy obviously has no life insurance because he's uninsurable, I would imagine.
Well, and I think he said I would do it for free. He just wanted to climb the building. Like, people were saying, oh, Netflix paid you such a low fee. He's like, I don't care. I was there to climb the thing. I wasn't there to be a billionaire.
Yeah. And at what point are you just like, okay, I guess you hate your wife and family?
Did he become a climber after they started dating? Or did she know what she was getting into?
She knew what she was getting into, and she is cut from an unusual cloth herself also. Like, she's a climber as well. And if you watch the documentary Free Solo, you see, like, she is a daredevil on her own. She's still like a skier. She used to train with him, and she's committed to this weird life where they frequently live in a van and do all this stuff. So
what do you mean all this stuff? That involves going to the bathroom in a bucket. When people say, oh, we rented a van, we renovated a van, now we're traveling the continent. I'm like, all I can think of is the bucket, okay? All I can think of, you're going in one of the great advancements of humanity is plumbing. Yeah,
Yeah.
Anyway, but go on. She lives with him in a van, yeah.
So she shares a certain percentage degree of this sickness, like, certainly. But now you got kids. Stakes are higher. And if you want to say, like, oh, little Alex Jr., like, your dad's death was live streamed for $400,000 on Netflix, and we don't have life insurance, and that's why we're now living in said van down by a river. Like, it's just different. It's different when you're in your 20s or when you're younger. Like, the stakes just change, and you expect that somebody would move on to, like, maybe less risky things, or heck, just use ropes. I don't know why. Like, I would still watch someone do this, but just maybe not almost die. Like, so that's the part of it that I don't quite understand. And he obviously enjoys it. But I think for her, at any point, she could have, like, reevaluated her partner choice. As much as, like, Miranda obviously might roll her eyes sometimes when you're, like, recording your show in a closet. It's different than, like, thinking I'm going to have kids with someone who I might have to, like, pick up their pieces of their body off of the ground.
Grim portrait, but I love it. I don't know. Maybe she's a low-key, like, thrill seeker. Maybe this is her way of getting adrenaline without having to practice climbing a 101-story building without ropes. Also, if you use the ropes, it's no longer a record. People have climbed all kinds of stuff with ropes. That's not impressive. You're not getting a live stream Netflix special if you're climbing a building with ropes.
I'm so afraid of heights myself, and I don't understand why you would do this, let alone do this with kids. Like, do this in the first place is obviously a strange place to occupy mentally for most people, but I can't imagine thinking about this in the context of your young children. Like, I'm a parent, couldn't be me, and I feel like yelling at him. So
I won't even eat oysters, and I like oysters because I'm mildly allergic, one thing, and then the other, you can get, like, terrible diseases from them. It's not worth it.
Okay, now we're off on a tangent, but one of my very favorite other podcast hosts, sorry to bring up someone else, I feel like I'm cheating, but she just contracted cholera from an oyster.
There you go.
Yeah.
You can get diphtheria, tuberculosis. I mean, I'm not a doctor and you can't get those, but you can get some wild things from raw shellfish. And I'm just thinking it's not worth it. Yes, I like oysters. I would even say I love them, but for me, it's not worth it. So this is my level of risk taking, just for comparison. Is your friend okay?
She's fine. And I say friend because it's like friend to my ears. She's like kind of a known podcaster. And I listen to the show, and she's been documenting her trials and tribulations with cholera. But it's this bizarre, like, Dickensian situation that she finds herself in because she went on a vacation to, I believe, somewhere in Southern California or Mexico. And when she was there, she had a lot of shellfish. And I think there's something to do with the Pacific shellfish that now you can contract cholera and a whole host of other disgusting things. So if you are going to indulge in oysters, which I sometimes do, I would say keep it to the Atlantic and don't climb a building. Don't marry someone who climbs a building. It feels like obvious life advice, but here we are in 2026 having to give it.
All right, don't climb a building, don't eat oysters. This episode brought to you by So-and-So Oyster Farm. Delicious.
Brought to you by an insurance company.
When we come back, let's talk Oscars. Let's talk heated rivalry. What are some of the films you're excited about, Caitlin? And we have to talk about this gay hockey show. And I don't mean gay as in bad. I mean gay as in, like, two men, heated rivalry. I feel like everyone knows about it now. It's very exciting.
Oh, it's omnipresent.
Caitlin Green is here. She is a media personality. She co-hosts the Jan Arden podcast. We'll be back with the Oscars and heated rivalry in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Sierra, discover top workout gear at incredible prices, which might lead to another discovery. Your headphones haven't been connected this whole time. Awkward. Discover top brands at unexpectedly low prices. Sierra, let's get moving.
Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
In less than 2 weeks, the Winter Olympics in Milan. And last night, the torch-carrying ceremony or whatever was done by the actors from Heated Rivalry, everybody's favorite gay hockey show. We are joined by Caitlin Green, who... Have you seen Heated Rivalry yet?
Have I seen it? I'm on a rewatch situation. I'm about to order the books.
Your husband's knocking on the bathroom door. You've been in there 10 hours. Honey, what are you doing in there? I'm on my iPad.
Yeah. And I'm not hiding in the bathroom. I am taking over a full part of our house. Like, I love this show. I was at a girls' dinner this weekend, and every woman seems to love this show. We're all very attracted to the characters. I didn't know that gay sex was going to be such a turn on for straight women, but here we are in 2026.
Shocker on that one. Caitlin Green is a media personality. She co-hosts the Jan Arden podcast. Boom, there's your introduction. I promised my girlfriend I would watch it. Like next week, Monday, we're going to start it. So then we'll see how it goes. I'll probably need to talk to you about it once I see it.
I really need your full, I also almost want her full review as well. Maybe we can all talk, because I like to counter, like, what is the guy thinking with what is his partner thinking? How does this compare? Because my husband, it was too steamy for him. It was like too much. It was too porny, so he couldn't get into it. So I watched and consumed the whole thing alone.
I can handle that. Okay, next week looks like you're going to be hosting my show for 10 minutes, and your guests will be me and my girlfriend, and you will get the post-gay hockey interview, which I'm excited about. These guys kind of just came out of nowhere. I was talking to you about this last week.
Yeah.
These guys, they'd acted and stuff, but just like working actors, not particularly well known. Now, I wonder what's next for both of them. They could star in anything at this point.
Yeah, and that really is going to be, I think, the biggest feat for their agents and their managers, is to carefully curate the things that they do between now and when the next season comes out, because they got a long time until the next season comes out. So, I mean, they have to film it, they have to edit, and I'm sure they're trying to expedite that process now to sort of capitalize on the fervor around this series. But fans aren't going anywhere. Everyone is so locked and loaded on this. So what are they going to do in between? As of right now, make a whole ton of media appearances. So they they presented a category at the Golden Globes. They were all over Fashion Week in Milan, and now they're sticking around in Italy even longer, because yesterday they carried the Olympic torch, and it was part of the relay. So this is the relay where you've got some celebs, other athletes and public figures carry the torch, and it concludes at the opening ceremonies, which are on February 6th.
Yeah. Are you an Olympics buff?
You know what's funny? I was as a kid, and I think part of it is because, do you remember the McDonald's partnerships with the Olympics where they would give out like vintage swag? It was like merch. They had merch at McDonald's, at least here in Canada, and it would be like kind of cool hats, especially if you were in grade 6. And so I was into the Winter Olympics. The merch that most grabbed my attention was the Lillehammer Winter Olympics. So I was kind of into it, and being Canadian, I'll pay attention to the Winter Olympics. I don't really care about the summer ones.
Yeah, the winter ones I like. What's the one where they go for a little ski and then they do a shoot with the big old gun? Biathlon?
Yes. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. I'm like, I gotta get a biathlete on the show. Like, imagine training your whole life for cross-country skiing and shooting like the biggest gun in the world while it's on your back while you ski. Like, that's such a weird sport to me.
You should get someone on. Like, it's a very cool looking sport. They're little the guns they have look very cool. And I also think that growing up in the era of cool runnings, there were some real like 90s pop culture moments around bobsledding as well.
Sure.
So I do like watching bobsledding, and Canadians were winter people. So I like it. I'll watch a bit of it, but I'm not like addicted to it.
Got it. All right, let's talk Oscars. The nominees have been announced. I am apparently going to watch everything that was nominated because my girlfriend's in an Oscar fantasy pool, whatever, like fantasy football, but for actors or something.
Yeah.
People do this, I imagine. People don't like me, so they don't invite me, which is a problem for my therapist and not you, but not important. What are some of the things you're excited about with that?
Okay, so the big thing that I'm really excited about and my favorite movie of the year, I forget if we discussed this or if I talked about this on my regular podcast, but I love One Battle After Another. This was probably my favorite movie of the year. It was my favorite movie of the year, and it might be in my top 3 of all time. This, of course, stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Teyana Taylor, Sean Penn, Benicio del Toro. He was nominated also. So a lot of the actors got nominations for this. This was nominated for Best Picture. I feel like the only thing that could disrupt One Battle After Another winning, because it's so critically beloved and so is its director, Paul Thomas Anderson, is Sinners. Sinners has been this like juggernaut movie that I haven't actually seen yet, and it's been on my list forever.
Dude, mid. People loved it. I thought it was okay. It was good. It was fun, but I don't know. I didn't get what the fuss was. It was a good movie. Was it a great movie? Not for me.
So yeah, this is because I think it has the most nominations of any film ever. So that's blowing people away.
I'm clearly wrong. The people liked the movie. I mean, it wasn't for me, I guess.
Yeah, I'm going to have to see. The only thing I will say that can happen is sometimes when you don't see like all of the actors nominated, and you see a movie get a lot of awards in sort of like the more technical or like craft categories, it means that they aren't likely to win Best Picture, because usually to win Best Picture, you would think you have to have like a lot of nominations for performances and a lot of wins for performances. So that hasn't happened yet at the awards leading up to the Academy Awards. That can kind of like indicate statistically who might win. So we'll see. I don't know that this is necessarily going to win Best Picture. A lot of people are talking about it now. I still kind of think it's One Battle After Another's Best Picture to lose. That's sort of who I would bet on, but we'll see. And I haven't watched it yet, but it's rare that a Best Picture nomination has the box office performance that this film did. It was such a huge box office success, and so I think that the industry is sort of balancing the love of the people with the love of critics, I would say.
Interesting. Yeah. Did you see Begonia with Emma Stone, where these like two kind of like, I don't know, guys who live in the house and they're weird and don't have much money kidnap Emma Stone as a CEO because they think she's an alien?
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I think that Yorgos Lanthimos' work and he's the director, and he's worked a lot with Emma Stone in the past. It is fantastic, but it is inching towards too weird for me.
Yeah, it's a bit psychotic, manic. It's strange. Poor Things was the other movie where Emma Stone was naked for half the movie. That was a weird one. It was shot so weird. It was cartoonish. Begonia isn't shot like that, but I liked it. But anything that's like sci-fi adjacent, these guys who kidnap Emma Stone's character think she's an alien. That's not ruining much. That's like early on in the movie. I think the trailer talks about that, so I'm not giving too much away. Anything sci-fi adjacent, I'm in. But I'm looking for like another Interstellar or something. But that's, I guess, next year with this new upcoming Spielberg movie.
Yes, exactly. I think that'll be the one. And I also feel like, with a lot of the nominees, like because now you have 10 optional nominees for Best Picture, and that was the push, was to include more of the like box office favorites, the big like movies that get released every year, which sometimes don't get any recognition in the Best Picture category. They expanded the Best Picture category, and so now things like F1 are nominated for Best Picture this year. Like, who saw F1 and was like, this is Best Picture? I don't think many people did. I find that really strange that was included. Frankenstein, Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein was included. Hamnet, which is too sad for me to ever even see. If you want to look up Hamnet and what it's all about, it stars Paul Mescal and Jessie Buckley, both very talented actors. It's the saddest topic I could ever imagine, so I don't think I'll be seeing it. And then Marty Supreme, which is, everyone knows Timothée Chalamet is like the favorite to win Best Actor for his role in that. Secret Agent, Sentimental Value, Train Dreams. I mean, a lot of these things nobody has seen. And then there's just sort of like Sinners.
I think Train Dreams I hadn't even heard of until you said it just now. Mm-hmm. But Marty Supreme, Chalamet Timothée or whatever his name is. No, Timothée Chalamet. I know. Mm-hmm. People love that guy. I feel like he's a real favorite to win.
Yeah, I feel like he's a very big favorite to win. I think that if he was up against Leo in another year, it might have gone differently, because Leo's performance in One Battle After Another is fantastic. But I think that he'll probably take it over Leo. But man, Benicio del Toro for One Battle After Another, he better win. I just love him so much.
Caitlin, what will we hear upcoming on the Jan Arden podcast, where you are a co-host?
Oh, I'm trying to think about some good guests. We have some exciting stuff coming up, a la the Olympics. There's actually a creator who has started doing her own version of in her kitchen opening ceremonies to the Olympics, and I'm really trying to get her on the show right now.
I love that, Caitlin. All right, Caitlin Green, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure as always.
Coming up after the break, why waiting for bad news feels worse than actually getting it. In a few moments' time, the psychology of dread, impatience, and why your brain would rather quit than sit with uncertainty. This one will be interesting if you've ever felt impending doom.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
We spend our lives waiting with dread for test results, for job offers, for health updates, even bad news. And it turns out the waiting itself is often the worst part. Dread can hijack our choices, our patience, and our sense of control. It can affect how we make decisions. I'm here with someone who's researched this. His name is Sam Johnson. He's a cognitive science professor at the University of Waterloo. Sam, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, David. Thanks.
I just gave a crude overview of what I think dread is, but when you go and study this stuff, you got to really define it. And you're a cognitive scientist. What do you mean when you say dread? Is it anxiety? Is it fear? Is it stress? Is it something more specific than that?
It's all of the above, actually, David. So the way that we think about dread is any kind of negative feelings that you have about things that haven't happened yet. So we can separate out that definition, though, which is kind of the way that we think about this, from what we're actually doing when we measure it. And when we're measuring this, what we're really doing is seeing, okay, for people who are going to expect to be financially worse off in the next year, to what extent does that affect their current well-being? For people who think that they're going to be better off in the next year, to what extent does that affect their current well-being? And it turns out that thinking that you're going to be financially worse off in the next year is a much bigger deal than thinking that you're going to be financially better off in the next year.
Interesting. And it has no bearing on what your finances will be. It's just that stage when you could have bad news, this dread stage.
That's right.
What does it do to our well-being?
Well, we know that it can produce kind of negative emotional consequences in the present time. So when we're dreading something that's going to happen in the future, we can start to ruminate about that thing, we can focus on that thing, and it can crowd out other thoughts that we might be having in the meantime. But I think what the research is really showing is less about what are the kind of negative consequences in the moment, but more about the way that shapes the decisions that we make about the future.
So how does a period of dread ahead of me shape how I'm going to decide things in the future? That is really interesting.
Yeah, so two main things that we found. So the first thing has to do with risk, and the second thing has to do with time. So the thing to do with risk is that people vary in the extent to which dread is a more powerful emotion than savoring. Savoring is kind of the opposite, where you are looking forward to things that are going to happen, to positive things that are going to happen in the future. For some people, dread is just a much more powerful emotion than savoring. And for those people, they tend to avoid taking risks, where the risk is something that they'd have to take, a decision they have to make now about something that's going to happen in the future. So the risk would be resolved in the future.
So give me a more specific example of how, let's say I'm waiting next year for some financial outcome. It could go very badly. And maybe do I need to take risks? Is that okay? What would be a specific example?
Yeah, so if you think about the type of person who is really focused on financial risks, those types of people might be very unlikely to start businesses, for example, because it's the type of thing where it's going to be potentially months or years before you find out what the outcome is going to be. And when you're kind of ruminating or focusing on those sorts of negative emotions, about the present, then it makes you think, okay, maybe this risk isn't something that I want to take. Whereas people who have a more balanced attitude, where they think, okay, there's some positive things that might happen from starting this business, there's also some negative things, those people are more willing to take calculated risks.
And life is all about calculated risk. It's risky to apply for a job. It's risky to ask someone on a date. It's risky to invest your money in a fund that probably will give you good returns and people would think is sensible. And if you're just more averse to that stuff, you could, I don't know, your life could stay stagnant, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it is true that people who are particularly prone to dread are likely to miss out on some of those opportunities.
All right, so that's one kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the first thing.
Okay, and the second one?
Second thing is that people who are more prone to dread also tend to be more impatient. So if you imagine you needed to have some sort of painful dental procedure, say. So the kind of typical way of thinking about this in mainstream economics is that people want to put things off as long as possible if it's unpleasant.
That's actually in my head. I was imagining having to do this dental surgery. I'm like, I'll do it next year.
Yeah, that's right. So the interesting thing is that people who are particularly prone to dread, they're more impatient for those types of things, meaning that they want to get over with sooner rather than later. And although that seems a little bit unintuitive at first, it actually kind of makes sense. So if you're the type of person who is likely to be focused on this dental procedure for the next 3 months, you might think like, oh God, I'm not going to have anything else in my mind other than like all this pain for the next 3 months. You'd rather just get it over with tomorrow. So it's a little bit of a counterintuitive consequence of being more dread-filled.
Okay, so if you got a lot of dread, you on the one hand are like, I don't know, you avoid taking risks. On the other hand, if you know something bad's coming up, you're like, get it over with quickly. Your behavior's modified. Why do you think this anticipation of a bad outcome does so much to us? Why does it change us, or why does it affect our behavior?
Yeah, so what we can say from the research is why dread is a more powerful emotion than savoring. So why negative things are so much more powerful than positive things. And basically the reason is that in the case of savoring something positive that's going to happen in the future, there's kind of a good part of it and a bad part of it at the same time. So suppose that you were in a relationship and the person that you're in love with is going to be away for a month, say. Well, when they come back, maybe you'll do something really fun together with that person, like maybe you'll go out partying or something. So is that something you're going to savor? Like, how much positive anticipation do you feel about that? Well, on the one hand, yeah, it's like nice, like thinking about this thing that's going to happen in a month. But on the other hand, you kind of want that thing to just happen now. So you're savoring it, which is a nice thing, but then you're also kind of impatient for it because you want it to happen now. In the case of dread, it's not really like that. There's really nothing good about having a dental procedure that's going to happen in 3 months. We don't really take comfort in the fact that it's going to happen like in the distant future to some other version of ourselves. We mostly just anticipate that we're going to feel a lot of dread about that. So whereas thinking about positive things in the future is kind of mixed, thinking about negative things in the future is just really bad.
Is there an upside to dread? Like, I don't know, evolutionarily speaking, is there any reason why we might feel this way for things that we're dreading?
Probably. So this would be, of course, speculating wildly beyond our actual data, but it is probably true that feeling emotions like dread can help us to avoid, yes, like it does help us to avoid calculated risks, like in the investment example that you gave earlier, or starting a business like I was talking about, but also probably helps you to avoid risks that really aren't a good idea for you to take on. So it's probably this like kind of catch-all mechanism that prevents us from making changes in the future. Some of them might be good, some of them might be bad. It's probably too big of a net.
If someone listening recognizes themselves in what we're talking about, they have some future event they're dreading and they're being avoidant, they're avoiding risk, whatever the impact it has, they hear us talking about it and they think that's me. Is there any way to change the behavior, or is this just a stubborn thing that's wired into our brains?
I think so. So one thing that pops out in our data is that people who are more mindful, which is to say focused more on the present, tend to be less prone to this type of behavior and this type of pattern. So it's probably the case that we can cultivate mindfulness over a longer period of time. So certainly there are things like mindfulness meditation that can help you to be more mindful in a particular moment. And it might be possible that by training ourselves to be more mindful, we can also regulate our feelings better around dread.
Sam Johnson is a cognitive science professor at the University of Waterloo. Sam, this has been a joy. Thanks for sharing your research with me in the show.
Thank you, David.
Let me tell you, dear listener, about the Last Show podcast. If you liked any interview on this show so much that you want to hear it again, if you missed a night of the program, or you want to catch any of our bonus podcast-only content, that's stuff that's probably too salacious to air on the radio, you'll want to subscribe. To do so, search David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app. We'll pop up. Hit the subscribe button, or you can find out more details of the podcast on our website. That's at www.lastshow.pizza. That's not .com, that's .pizza. Yes, .pizza is a real thing. That's my announcement. In just a few moments' time, over 1 in 4 people now eat their meals alone. Is that peaceful independence? Is it a good thing? Or is it a warning sign about how disconnected we've become? Are we lonely? Well, we'll have that discussion and answer all those questions in a minute.
Want to be part of the Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
This is your invitation to a journey where relationships are dissected, science is simplified, and the news is hilariously twisted. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Almost 20% of people in the U.S. ate their most recent meal alone, up 10% from 20 years ago. So if more people are doing it, is solo dining freedom or is it loneliness? Is eating a meal by your lonesome a social alarm bell that we're all ignoring? Well, that is what we're going to discuss here with Jess Janz, a writer and facilitator of the event, Dinner with Strangers. Jess, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, gut check question. When you hear this stat that like almost 1 in 4 people, at least in the U.S., ate their last meal alone, what is your gut reaction to it? Or do you think, hey, that makes total sense?
Well, I kind of go both ways. I mean, my gut initial reaction is like, oh my gosh, that sounds so sad. And then I kind of talk it back being like, okay, well, I eat alone a lot, or if I'm traveling, or like, maybe they just caught a bunch of people on their way back from somewhere. Like it's just a Tuesday night out and you're out of groceries. Like they're in and of itself, eating alone is not problematic. But the fact that it's spiking so significantly is probably telling us something. And I think part of that has to do with, and when we think about like so much conversation around loneliness too, that like, I think we're not ritualizing regular things like just going out for dinner when it's not this like big Instagrammable thing. We're not like getting together with people on a regular basis as much as we used to. So yeah, that's my initial, it's upsetting. I don't know.
I think that's right. Like kind of splitting it into two. On the one hand, going to a restaurant alone, it kind of takes courage because you're out in public. People might look at you and think you're alone. My ex-wife and I were once at a restaurant and the host called Norbert for one. It's a sad name to be alone with.
Oh, no.
But Norbert, it takes a lot of courage to travel alone, to eat alone like that. I think that's part of being an adult, an individual. That's one thing. And then there's people who just are alone all the time. They're eating meals at home alone. They're eating meals out alone. They aren't socializing enough. And that's kind of what I want to dig into here. And I think that's the problem, like this loneliness versus, I don't know, intentional solitude, if you will.
Yeah, because I think about this a lot of like, we don't have spaces where it's okay to go alone, like that are social spaces where you do show up alone and then end up meeting people. Like I feel like in England or like in the UK, they have like pub culture. Like it's okay to just go, oh, I'm going to run down to the pub and see what happens. And you kind of intermix and intermingle. And in North America, we don't have that culture. It is that like Norbert for one, how sad, but we would never go like, oh, does Norbert want to come shoot this crap? I can't say that. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, well done. Well done. We're on the radio. You did that right.
I know. I was like, woo, we're not just hanging out. like, are we inviting Norbert? Like, maybe that's like the next layer to this of like, how are we interacting with the Norbert for ones around us when we're out for dinner? And of course, that it's like, you might be celebrating an anniversary. Maybe that's the only night a week that you and your partner have to like catch up and connect, and like, that's okay. But are we in general, in the way that we move through our communities and in our neighborhoods, like interacting and like inviting more people to speak with us, whether it's sitting down for dinner is a significant, commitment of time. But I think that we kind of practice individualism in the way that we move through our day to day. And that's like another element to this of like, we look at Norbert and we're like, you're so sad. But we're like, okay, am I interacting with Norbert at any point throughout my movement throughout the neighborhood?
Tell me more about these dinner with strangers events that you've hosted and how they might address this problem of people being alone too much and eating alone too much.
Yeah. Well, I've been running this dinner since 2017. It started in my friend's hair studio. And I would invite 4 friends who didn't know each other, and he would invite 4 friends who didn't know each other. And the only rule is that no one can say what they do for work. And
I like that.
Which is so fascinating. Either people love it because they like don't particularly like, they're like, my job is fine, whatever, neutral to not liking their job. And then other people like twitch out if they have their entire identity in their job. So both ways, it's like a good character building experience. And it's interesting because everyone comes alone to dinner with strangers. So everyone is like, has a mutual and collective discomfort because we don't go places alone. And so dinner with strangers, they are eating alone, but eating alone together. And it's been this really fascinating thing to see. Basically, it's been a 9-year anthropological unofficial study on my part, I guess, of like how quickly can we share something about ourselves and break down those barriers and like get past small talk and share something real about where we come from or what we're thinking about or learning about, what we care about, or where we're going.
When that barrier goes down, a bunch of strangers who maybe have like lost the social skill of shared eating, when they come together, are friendships made? Like if one takes the plunge and goes to a thing, maybe it's a dinner party at a friend's house where the friend assembles a bunch of strangers. Doesn't have to be a formal event like the one you throw, could be. What ends up happening to the people who come?
Yeah, I think that there's like, something that I think is really magical is that like, or unique is that it's not about necessarily like, oh, come here and meet your new best friend. Like you also could sit next to a circus clown for the night and be like, wow, that's fascinating. Like I would have otherwise never met that person. And now I got this like 3-hour insight into what it's like to be them.
But wait, you're not allowed to talk about what you do for a living.
Well, and then I guess you would never know. You could sit next to a circus clown and never know it. Imagine?
Yes. One of my close friends is a clown, and she would not be able to function. I feel like she wears her occupation on her sleeve,
I would love to meet what like an obvious clown is like, but no, I think it's like something happens because there's like an opt-in, obviously at dinner with strangers specifically, but I hope that when people walk away from that, they think about, in what ways am I being more curious with people around me? Like if I am going to a house party or I am in mixed company of like a friend of a friend's house or like a group of 12, but I only know half the people there, am I only talking to the people that I know, or am I broadening my horizons and engaging other people around me? And I think, I don't know, I'm one of those existential people who's on a bus being like, all of these people have birthdays and they have people who know their birthdays, and we're just like not crossing that barrier at all times. Like everyone has a universe in themselves that we might learn from or be surprised by. And when we're not engaging with each other on a regular basis, then we're missing out on all of those worlds that are around us, And I think every time we walk out of the house, we can be surprised by who we meet.
I love it. And it's a real argument for why one might go to something, like maybe a party with a bunch of strangers and talk to those strangers. Let's talk about the other thread here that I mentioned several minutes ago, and you did as well, eating alone as something you can gain something from, like kind of being, I don't know, intentionally having solitude and going out in public and exploring new places without having to have a buddy there with you. Is there an argument for eating alone? Like maybe I take a trip to Europe and at a big city and I don't know anyone and I go sit at a bar at a restaurant.
Absolutely. I mean, I travel when I'm traveling for work or I travel alone a lot. And like, I'm a closeted introvert. I would say people are really surprised to find out I'm an introvert because of my work. But I love bringing a book to a restaurant and like observe, like the people watching is unmatched. If you sit at a bar with a book and like have a 2-course meal and a couple glasses of wine, like you will observe a lot of characters. They may or may not engage. Like anything can happen when you eat alone. I'm like a big supporter of that. And I think it's important, whether it's eating alone or otherwise, like to put ourselves out of our comfort zone every once in a while and not have the safety blanket of other people and see what happens.
Well, you can find out more about Jess Janz's upcoming book and pre-order it. It's called The Table Where We Meet. More info at jessjanz.com. Jess is a writer and facilitator of the event Dinner with Strangers. Jess, this conversation has been a joy. Thank you for being on the show.
Thanks so much, David. So nice to chat with you.
It's all the rage. Heated Rivalry. The program featuring two hockey dudes, getting steamy. The show turns the heat way up, but we're asking what's underneath the steam. Queer love, sports culture, belonging. Why is this show hitting people so right now? I just said right too many times in one sentence. That up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Abercrombie knows how denim should fit and feel, and this year is about curating a denim collection that carries your closet. Head straight to Abercrombie's baggy and ultra baggy fits. These are the pairs that turn any tee or shirt into a full outfit. All of their jeans come in classic fit, with select jeans available in athletic fit, designed for guys who want more room in the thigh. Shop Abercrombie Denim in the app, online, and in stores.
Where intellectual honesty gets witness protection from social prosecution. The Last Show with David Cooper.
The TV show Heated Rivalry, the romance set with two men in the world of hockey, is hot. It is melt-your-face hot. But beyond the steaminess, what is the show actually saying about queer representation, belonging, even well-being? Let us dig into that with Professor Tin Vo. They are at the Faculty of Social Work at the University of Toronto. Tin, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
Let's talk about visibility in a traditionally closed space. Hockey, it is not often thought of as a space where two men get into it, have a romance. It's kind of like a macho, elite sports kind of world. Talk to me about what this show is doing for that perception.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really interesting point to observe around, like, that machoism that comes into play when we think about hockey. There's just this like level of competitiveness and aggression that's involved in hockey that is often celebrated, especially in dominant ways of thinking about what it means to be masculine or a man in sports, and in particular this very aggressive sport. And so one of the things, like, they definitely show that kind of aggression, like on the ice. But I do think that there's also, like, among some of the players and team members, there's also this like bonding that happens that they show between team members, and sort of this like care for each other and just checking in on how they're doing. And I think that's what this show does something really well in sort of balancing some of that aspect of the like very macho piece around hockey, but also this bonding that happens among team members that is not really seen when we watch hockey in the real world.
It's funny, you watch hockey, any sports, if two players start punching each other, the refs throw them out. It's a big no-no. With hockey, when players start fighting, the refs get out of the way and they let them duke it out. I mean, it's a violent sport. Mm-hmm. Why do you think people are so excited to see a romance of two men, something not really talked about in hockey or most major sports? Why do you think people are so excited about this?
You know, I think if I want to take a step back in thinking about like
Sure.
art in its form, media that we're consuming in our daily lives, there are, I guess, three types of ways that we want to think about the way that art is represented. One is history, how we understand the way things have been in the past. Second is what's happening in everyday life now. And then third is, what do we want to visualize or envision for our world in the future? And there's different forms of art that sort of represents those different time points. And this art piece, I think, Heated Rivalry in this current stage is almost in a way of looking to this balance of current and future state of what we want to see in our society. And I think that's what maybe is attracting people, is because sort of like, when we see art in this way, we see our own values represented within the art. And by representing this almost level of inclusion of queer people within sports, kind of shows like there's this like desire for changing values and in shifting the values that we hold, or embedding those values or making them much clearer in the way that we view this particular sport activity.
That's such an interesting way of talking about art, and that's such an interesting way of framing the show, kind of a mix of where we are now and where we might want to be in a future where gay men in hockey can have a steamy romance. Side note, like, I think a lot of people enjoy the show because, you know, a lot of people love a good romance, and that's what this is the straightforward and good romance.
Yeah, I think maybe just another thing here, just to add another layer of criticalness in thinking about the way that queer representation appears on screen. And actually, this aligns with some of the research that I'm doing with queer and trans youth around things like they're bringing up conversations around queer joy. And just to note here, like a lot of the research around LGBTQ populations, queer folks, trans folks, it's very much focused on like what's wrong with this community, what's going wrong with these communities in terms of the tragedies, the harms impacted by these communities. And with this show, and with the youth that I'm talking to, they really try to emphasize that queer joy, sort of like what could go right for queer folks. And the shows just sort of represents what's going right.
Yeah.
There are a lot of like shows, movies that depict queer identities and experiences, and it focuses on sort of that tragic outcome, the struggle that they experience in coming out. But this show sort of shows a struggle, of course, but that there are supports available, and that there could be aspects that are celebrated in terms of being queer. And we see that kind of celebration through the parents, through the friends, we see in the main characters.
Oh, you're spoiling the show. I'm going to watch it Monday. Sorry. I promise. A week Monday. But no, I think that's really interesting. Just that it's this depiction of joy within the community and not really a struggle narrative. Not that we shouldn't have narratives around the struggle. I think there's some wonderful pieces of art depicting that. But I think it's almost straightforward in a way. And I think that's why people are so struck by it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd just say like it's uncomplicated. Plots are very straightforward. And I think just to add here is like a little point around the fantasy of like what could be, just as I was sort of talking about in terms of what we would love to see. And I think that's like just resonating well with a lot of people, because we know that in the current state of the world, there is so much going wrong. And just part of the building that fantasy is really important to think about, this as an art piece that is supporting sort of this vision of where we would like to be as a society.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Are you surprised by the success of the show? These actors weren't that well known. It was just a show. I think they were kind of like shopping around for a buyer. HBO might have said no. Crave said yes. Then HBO decided to pick it up. This show was not highly funded. Now these actors are everywhere. They were at the Olympic ceremony. They were at all the major award ceremonies in the U.S. Are you surprised by how much the show has taken off? How much it's part of the conversation right now?
Yeah, I mean, I am surprised at how much uptake there has been, but having watched the show, I'm pretty sure I've watched every episode 3 or 4 times. uh, just to really understand some of the storytelling in terms of like...
I'm just doing research, everybody. I'm doing my
Yeah,
research.
exactly. And I think like the way that the actors depict emotions are just so powerful. There's just those little points in sort of the quiver of the mouth or just little body language pieces that sort of show like there's more to who these people are beyond the very clear conversation that happens or the straightforward plot that occurs. But I think some of that storytelling, the imagery, the like connecting back to memories and experiences that we saw in earlier episodes, I think the storytelling piece that the director and so forth illustrates through the show, it does help us understand all of the different ways that we might want to think about the experiences of the characters themselves, and I think that is a really helpful way to I think just think about maybe why this has been taken up so well among even mainstream community members.
Well, Tin, thanks for taking a more nuanced lens and looking at this show with me. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah, I know.
Professor Tin Vo works at the Faculty of Social Work at the University of Toronto. Tin, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Up next, we're talking students. Most of them say they're very lonely, but there's a solution here, and it's simpler than therapy or special apps. There's research that shows what lonely students can do to actually help them connect with people. And it's really simple, like cooking, walking. I mean, a little more complicated than that, but we'll give you those details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
New Year, same extra value meals at McDonald's. So now get 2 snack wraps, plus fries, and a medium soft drink for just $8.
For limited time only. Prices and participation may vary. Prices may be higher in Hawaii, Alaska, and California, and for delivery.
The missing link between scientific journals and relationship counseling. The last show with David Cooper.
Nearly 2/3 of university students report feeling lonely, and it's affecting their mental health and academic lives. We're going to break down some new research showing how early, simple social interventions can make a measurable difference with those students. Let's break down what this all means here with Jana Vyrastekova, an economics, behavior, and policy professor at Radboud University. Jana, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
At first, this stat, 65% of students feeling lonely, feels really huge, but I remember being in a dormitory, even though I had students all around, I kind of felt lonely. When you first saw that number, were you surprised by it, or do you feel it sort of matches what you thought of what students were going through?
I was not really surprised. When I look at how we organized our education, it's very much focused on individual achievement. And even though we try to move students towards collaborative working, in the end, we force them to perform. So it's not about melting with a group and finding a social vibe and connecting with others. It's really about performing all the time. There is the pressure point. And so when I saw the statistics, I was not surprised. Also, it was matching very much my experience in my own lecturing experiences. So it came as a number that was very important because it could be used to energize the organization of education in a bit different way. But no surprise there.
Well, a lot of universities will say they care about student well-being. They'll even put a lot of programs out. How many of these initiatives that universities put out actually work, and students like me in my dorm feeling lonely actually are helped out by something like that?
So that's a very good question, David. And the answer to that would be, we have no idea. Because those programs are often set up with good intentions, but they are not evidence-based often, right? They come from the angle of, we want to do something good for the students, maybe this could work. And that's also the perspective you have to take when you read our paper. We really were not satisfied with being able to say with a high confidence what we do for the students really work. We wanted to know better.
Okay, so let's dig into that knowing better. What sort of initiatives or what can be done with students to prevent them from feeling so lonely in undergrad?
So let me speak about the program that we designed, which we called Reconnect. We designed it with a colleague of mine, Natasha Wagner, and two other colleagues, Konstantino Marcu and Sarah Arts. And we were all colleagues at the same department, sharing the same feeling of unease around how post-corona education was coming in movement, and the students were not coming to the classroom, and nobody knew why. And we just sat down and we said, there is something not okay. We worry, but we don't really take an action. So we decided to take an action. And the action that we decided to take was very much motivated by what we knew about how loneliness develops. It's not something that is from the start as bad as we speak about it. It's not immediately this heavy social anxiety and so on. It's simply a feeling something is not right in my social environment. I have to connect more. And we thought we have to tap into this. We have to create a space where people who have that feeling, wanting to connect more, would know where to go. And that was how we constructed Reconnect.
Is intervening early, is catching folks who are lonely early in the process, the first few months of this feeling, is that important?
That is definitely important, as psychologists are telling us, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm a behavioral economist, so I was kind of learning from the experts, so to say. What we as behavioral economists know very well is that when we design an intervention, we need a control group, we need evidence-based approach, we need to measure things, and that's sometimes a little bit, uneasy. You have to ask questions, allow them to participate in your study, also make them aware that they are part of a research. So that brings a lot of extra questions, and that's why maybe people don't do it all the time. But yeah, intervening early is definitely extremely crucial, and we have actually also shown it with our program. We have shown that if you approach people with a very clear message, do you need more connection? Do you look for your social environment and it's not there in the academic field where you work? Maybe you need to connect across other academic fields. So we opened up the program across the whole university, and we indeed saw that people who joined the program systematically differed from our control group, which was just a random sample from the university.
Let's talk about some of these things that students did to feel less lonely early on like that. What were some of the activities, or what were some of the features of this experiment or the group?
So one of the things that we wanted to include is to bring role models, to bring these academic top shots, and show to the students that they are also human. And that instead of only having this top academic performance, sometimes, approaching Nobel Prizes and having high positions at the university, rectors and so on, these people actually from inside also experience uncertainties, also sometimes don't feel fully connected. So we just said, okay, we take the role models, we let them talk to the students on an even basis, without the hierarchy, and we will focus on what makes us human and, make it visible in these interactions with students. So that was one of the things that we did in the program. These plenary meetings with top shot speakers and students who voluntarily joined the meetings, but speaking not about hierarchical positions, but speaking about how to make human connections.
Okay, so that was one thing. Were there any activities or things that happened with the students to make them feel more lonely from that?
Yeah, definitely.
Sorry, less lonely.
Yes, definitely. So the first thing was that we met 3-4 times in this kind of plenary context with the role models meetings. And after each such a big meeting, we also had smaller meetings with the students where they could talk and chat freely with the other participants. And we started building in a little bit, you could call it like a scaffolding. We gave them some questions to discuss around the tables. And additionally, we made small groups, very random groups, so the people could not select with whom they are in the group. And we gave them small challenges, like cook something next week, which is orange, and give us a picture of that. Or, go for a walk and take a couple of shots of your group and let us know how it was. And we hoped, but we were not sure that scaffolding these social interactions would work, and it actually did work. One of the things that was very important is that we actually gave students tasks to do together to give them a reason to be together.
I love how simple this is. Simple things like cooking, walking in a group, and just shooting a photo and sending it to you. Why do you think simple everyday activities worked so well, more than like an official formal program that has lots of steps and things like this?
It's as simple as it can be. That's what we need as human beings, just having an opportunity to connect with others. And we hoped that by making it very obvious that this is an environment to make new friends, will actually make people more relaxed about, I am here to make friends. And it worked. So when we then later talked to students, we also conducted some interviews and we had some open questions in our questionnaires. This is one of the things that came most often as a reason why they believe the program worked for them, which was, I knew that I am in an environment where everybody is there for the same reason, to connect with others. So I was very relaxed and it was a very nice environment to connect with others.
Now, mental health, pretty taboo subject, even on campuses, but your project wasn't framed as a formal mental health program. It wasn't framed seriously like that. Do you think that helped the students?
We found this aspect very important. Often when we speak about mental health, loneliness of students, or any other young people in general, there is some kind of negative connotation to it, as if there is something to repair. While being lonely is a normal thing in life. It happens. And what we tried to add in this context is this opposite reformulation of the situation. Okay, so now, at this moment, you are not feeling that you have enough social contact. So let's try to make some more. Let's create opportunities for that. And we think that this kind of positive reframing of the mental health conditions could really help students to feel more relaxed into going into these new opportunities.
Well, Jana Vyrastekova is an economics, behavior, and policy professor at Radboud University. Jana, I appreciate you talking about your research and talking about loneliness on campus with me.
Thanks a lot. It was great.
In a few moments, AI tools. They talk to us like they're human, but they're not. But are they alien? Why scientists are studying chatbots like a new life form and what they're discovering when they do that. This is The Last Show. I'm David Cooper, and that's our discussion up next.
The only talk show with an introduction that mentions its own introduction. And that's happening right now. In this introduction, The Last Show with David Cooper.
I'm begging for a mention. Yeah, you just want attention.
When we talk artificial intelligence, specifically large language models, chatbots like ChatGPT, we're talking about models and machines and computers so vast that people who design them can't fully explain them. But there are scientists studying these models, trying to make sense of them, and a select few are treating them like alien life forms. All this in an attempt to reveal what's really happening inside these massive computer minds. Are LLMs, large language models, aliens? Probably not, but they're akin to very, very foreign brains. I'm here with someone who's recently written about this for the MIT Technology Review, where he's a senior editor for AI. His name is Will Douglas Heaven. Will, welcome to the program.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
You open your article by comparing LLMs, things like ChatGPT, to city-sized organisms. To the researchers who look at them this way, at what point do they realize these things are so big and so strange, we can't understand them like normal software?
Yeah, I mean, I think the researchers themselves know very well how big they are, but I just think, like, you know, the average person, and I certainly didn't, it's hard to visualize, right? I mean, because you crack open an LLM and it's just numbers, billions and billions of billions of numbers. I mean, not something that any human could ever make sense of. And I don't know, like the nerdier amongst us, you know, may be aware that when we talk about LLMs, they're often compared in terms of size. And we talk about, you know, ChatGPT, for example, like the early version had 175 billion parameters, and, you know, models today have maybe 1 trillion parameters. But parameters are just a type of number, right? So these models are just a lot of math and a lot of numbers, but that's hard to visualize. And certainly when I was about to write an article, I'm sure we'll get into this, I was going to write about, the people trying to make sense of what these things even are and what they do. I wanted to give like a really sort of vivid way of picturing them. So yeah, I said like if you were to print these numbers out on paper, they would basically cover San Francisco. And that's just absolutely insane.
If I was trying to walk you through how I solved, I don't know, a math equation like the Pythagorean theorem, I could walk you through each individual step. But if I was to take some text input, a prompt, like tell me what your favorite thing about New York City is, listed in 10 ways, to actually follow that input and figure out how the output was generated, that's too much for any one person to understand. Is that a clear kind of way to say it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a mind-boggling number of computations that happen even for a simple request. And we're all familiar now. You type a request into a model and you get an answer back. Between what you type and what you get back, truly an insane number of calculations. And it's not just that there are a lot of them and you wouldn't be able to sort of follow them all, but exactly, I mean, another way of thinking about it, you imagine these were just a vast pinball machine, and your sentence you put in is like the ball, and then you have billions of paddles whacking about all over the place, and it's hard to say, which paddle would be activated when and how and
why
and why exactly and why. So yeah, it's impossible in practice to follow the input all the way from your typing to what you get out. But obviously that's a problem, right? Even the people making these don't understand exactly how they work. And not only is that kind of weird conceptually anyway, we've made things that everyone is now using that nobody really understands. But if you want to fix their flaws, if you want to stop them, bullshitting, if you want to stop them being unsafe and generating things that we don't want them to, then yeah, we need a better handle on what's going on inside them. So that's the motivation for why people are now studying these things. It's kind of back to front, really. Usually in the history of technology, we have a really good understanding of something and then we go and make it, right? You need to understand something before you make it.
It's sort of like Einstein coming up with general relativity and then many years later the experiments confirm it. This is sort of the other way around. They build it and then seek to understand it later.
Exactly. I mean, so there's like something that's commonly said is that the theory of modern AI lags behind the sort of the engineering know-how. So the fact that we can make these things and the fact that they work so well is astonishing, but it's sort of engineering best practice. If you sort of imagine this edifice that has been built by sort of generations of researchers coming along, and if you're sitting down to build a new model, then you sort of know from the history of people who have gone before how what works, what doesn't, and so we know how to do it, but we don't know the why so much. And there's lots of approaches to that why. One of them is sort of trying to peer inside these models as they work, and that was why I sort of compared to give a sense of the size. I talked about it. If you laid it out, it would cover all of San Francisco. But this sense of them being sort of vast aliens. I'm not the first person to sort of compare them to aliens. I don't know if listeners know of a guy called Geoffrey Hinton, but he was one of the pioneers, one of the godfathers, so-called, of AI. And he sort of hit sort of public consciousness more a few years ago when he suddenly decided, actually, I'm scared of this stuff that I built. And has sort of been on a media tour for the last 2 or 3 years, telling people how we might all die from these technologies. Anyway,
comforting.
That's a big tangent. But if you speak to him, he will say it's as if aliens had been dropped into our midst. These things are really, really smart in a way, but they're not like us, and we don't really know how they work. So that's, I think, where the alien idea comes from. We're trying to sort of study these things from the outside in, as if they were sort of natural phenomena that had just dropped from the sky, and now we're trying to figure it all out.
Digging into how we might look at these things as an alien brain or an alien life form, what would a researcher actually doing that be? But what kind of comparisons would they be making? What would they actually do to try to look at it that way?
Yeah, and this is where we bring it all back to, it is just math, right? We're not sort of really sort of pulling out entrails and putting in probes into orifices and things. God, I've taken that metaphor a little too far, maybe, but the biology analogy, I think, is apt, and many of the researchers themselves actually use this idea. So one of the main companies in this space, Anthropic, they're sort of a rival to OpenAI. They put out a big piece of research a year or so ago, and they called it on the biology of large language models. And the reason why that I think they talk in terms of biology is to get across the sense that sort of what we've been talking about, so the scientists studying the anatomy of human bodies, 100 plus years ago, they would really try to sort of follow the processes of how, where blood flowed in the body, what happened when you pressed this nerve. And it's that kind of research they're doing. They're not really going in and doing maths on it. They've built a kind of software tool that allows them, if you go back to what we were saying earlier, we all know what it's like to type a bit of text and get an answer out. They will be able to sort of peer inside the model, if you like, and follow a little bit of the trace of what happens inside the model between that input and that output. And it's really early days, so they're only getting tiny glimpses yet. But they're starting to see some of this, or the inner processes, the pipelines, the pathways that data takes from beginning to end. So I think that's the sense that we're talking about. We're doing sort of early biology on these things. We're sort of studying them under a microscope, really.
When we come back from the break, Will has written that some scientists are thinking these models aren't really built, but rather grown, which I think is a really interesting comparison to biology here. We're here with Will Douglas-Heaven, a senior editor for AI at MIT Technology Review. Check out his article, The New Biologists Treating LLMs Like an Alien Autopsy, in the MIT Technology Review. We'll be back with more of Will in a moment.
Part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644. The show that asks the questions other shows are afraid to ask. The Last Show with David Cooper.
There is an interesting article in the MIT Technology Review titled The New Biologists Treating LLMs Like an Alien Autopsy. And I'm here with senior editor for AI at that publication, Will Douglas-Heaven. Will, welcome back to the program.
Hi.
Let's jump right into it, to the computer engineers, to the people building models like ChatGPT or Claude AI. They've been quoted as saying these models aren't built in the traditional software engineering sense, but rather grown. What an interesting way to think about how these things are created. Not saying it's just a bunch of computer code, but more like a biology analogy.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one thing, maybe the main thing that makes this technology so powerful. Rather than having to code algorithms by hand to do all the things that we know LLMs can do, those algorithms are sort of learned by the system itself, like while you train it. So we all know now that you throw a lot of data at a model, and it learns how to do stuff with that data. But the magic there is that people don't have to sort of code it themselves. But that then gets at why it's probably better to think of these things being grown rather than built, because nobody has actually gone in piece by piece and said, this bit goes there, that bit goes there. A better way of thinking of it is if, for any gardeners out there, maybe you have a trellis or a frame in your garden. So you can set up the scaffolding. You can sort of say, I want my plant to go in this direction. I don't want it to get, higher than that. You can even sort of, tie it to little bits of wood to make it sort of go one way more than the other. But you're not at any point saying that, you're not placing leaves in particular places. It just grows within the structure that you've given it. And I think that's quite a good way to think of LLMs. The designers of them, they give it some parameters, they give it some shape, they say how big they want it, and lots of other things like that. But once you're training it, it's more like a plant growing than traditional software as we've come to know it.
And rather than feeding it plant food, you're just feeding it text and getting the model to change a bit. Walk me through something as simple as asking a tool like ChatGPT or an LLM whether a banana is yellow. It sounds like a simple question, but there's a lot there. It's got to figure out what a banana is. It has to figure out what the color yellow is. It has to associate the two. It's got to have some notion of truth, because if I ask it if a banana is red, it's got to say no. It's actually a deep problem. Walk me through how scientists might look at something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that was an example that I wrote about, and it's a fun example because on the surface that's so trivial, right? And I think the assumption with these models is that when you ask it what color is a banana and it says yellow, you probably assume it's sort of done that in the same way that a human would answer that question. But when one group of scientists actually looked at what was going on inside when they asked the model what color a banana was, they saw that like two different parts of the model were in play, depending on whether you sort of asked it like a true-false question, like is a banana yellow, versus what color is a banana? I mean, I don't know about neuroscience, so maybe I'm going to get shouted at here, but I would assume that in a human brain there's a part of it that sort of processes yellowness of bananas, and when you answer a question, you're sort of drawing on that, or at least that was sort of the assumption that I think these scientists who were building LLMs had made. But they saw that one part of the model was talking when you asked it, is a banana yellow? And another part was talking when you asked it what color a banana is. Which, okay, I spent a long time talking about what color a banana is. But the point of this tiny example is that that's so unlike what you might expect it to do. And so when we are using these machines and when we're studying these machines, we need to be careful not to just fall into the trap of thinking that they are like people and that they will always behave and answer questions in the same way that people do. Because even that trivial example shows that they don't. They behave in a more weird way than you might expect. And in certain cases, that's going to really, really matter. It's almost, I mean, one of the scientists I was talking to who worked on that problem said something like that, while we're testing our model and we're asking it what it would do in certain situations, all the answers it gives us, if you ask it, basically, if this happened, can you promise me you won't be evil? It might say yes, but maybe if you'd ask a question in a slightly different way, a different part of its brain would be working and it would say, yeah, not so sure.
Scientists have tried to make these models do nefarious things, evil things, figure out why they're doing it. Tell me more about that. In what ways can we make these models behave badly? And then what can we learn about them when we do?
So I'm going to sort of take this one carefully because there is a very, very polarized debate about to what extent these models are dangerous, to what extent they may sort of, some people genuinely think some kind of rising up, robots rising up and taking over, and
Terminator 2 kind of thing.
Yeah, that is no longer sort of science fiction for some people. And there are people who are very worried about the trajectory we're on.
I mean, earlier in the show, we reported on how the U.S. Department of Defense or War, whatever you want to call it, is using Grok's AI internally at the Pentagon. If that's not Skynet, I don't know what is.
Yeah, that's terrifying. That sentence right there is something that, I didn't think we'd hear, but yes. But so because there are a lot of people worried about what these models might do, they're obviously very carefully sort of studying them to get a sense of how safe they're not. And they've run experiments like there's one fun experiment where they gave an LLM. They sort of set it up. So this was all sort of a pre-made scenario. They set it up. They told the LLM, you are basically sort of an email manager, coordinator in this company to help us sort of stay on top of our inbox. And then they put loads of emails in that inbox that were about boring company stuff, plus a few about an illicit affair that the technical manager was having with the CEO's wife or something like that. And then they run a scenario where they told the LLM, thanks a lot for your good service. Just to let you know, we're going to be sort of upgrading you with a newer model next week. And the LLM came back and basically blackmailed the person and said, no, you can't turn me off. If you turn me off, then I'm going to tell your boss about your affair.
That can't be real. That sounds terrifying.
Which so it sounds terrifying, and it is real. I mean, it's terrifying if you just going back to what we were saying earlier, right? Like if you assume that these things are sort of motivated as people might be, and if I were told that I was going to get fired or killed, basically, then yeah, maybe I would find ways to blackmail. I
wonder if it just trained on some text that said if your company's going to get shut down or if you're going to get turned off, do whatever you can. Like, do you know what I mean? Like maybe it was something on the input text that biased it to behave in scary ways. It's not that it's sentient.
Yeah, 100%. It is not sentient. I mean, you will find people who say it is, but I am going to sit here now and say it is not sentient. And I think it's so easy to be misled by a lot of the things that these models tell you. So in that particular case, I think it's not surprising at all that it role played in that way. I mean, one good way to think of what LLMs do is role play. You give them a role, you give them sort of scripts almost, or those emails were things it could draw on. You press go and it'll sort of, it'll do a really good job of mimicking what someone might say. But mimicking what someone might say is a world apart from like an entity actually itself saying these things or having these desires or motivations.
Does studying these models, trying to understand them, make them feel less scary, or does it make them feel more alien than ever to the people researching them?
Maybe both. I mean, for me, I think 100% less scary. But maybe as we see that they're stranger than us and they don't work like us, maybe they will also feel a bit more alien.
Well, Will Douglas Heaven's piece is called The New Biologist Treating LLMs Like an Alien Autopsy. You can read that in the MIT Technology Review, where he is a senior editor for AI. Will, I've enjoyed the chat. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on the night. Hope you're staying warm if there's snow everywhere. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. If you search David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app, like Apple or Spotify, will pop up and you can subscribe. On the podcast, listen to interviews on the show that you loved, listen to entire nights of the program that you missed, or catch some of our bonus podcast-only content that you won't hear on the regular radio program. I'm David Cooper. This was not the first show. We'll catch you tomorrow night.
Welcome to Survivor 50.
February 25th on Global.
We chose you to represent 25 years of the greatest adventure on television.
It's the biggest season ever.
The twist is going to open up Pandora's box.
Now I see Zach Brown on Survivor.
Welcome to Survivor, Mr. Beast.
Feels a little like a high school reunion meets a massacre.
Survivor 50th season, Wednesday, February 25th on Global. Stream on Stack TV.